Alright, what we're going to show in this video is how to use a web browser to help you look at your design, your HTML coding, and your concepts. So the first thing we did was we created a web page. It has two components here, three actually. The first is layers. There are two layers here. The second is that one of the layers will change index level or depth, and then the other is that one of the layers has a image, and that image will change with interactivity. So let's go ahead and demonstrate that. The first is layers. Let's change the index layer. We can see in the blue field that by mousing over we are changing the index from a low index relative to the image to a high index relative to the image. And so what that does is it changes what's behind and what's in front of. So we're changing the layer 2 with the image to be below layer 1, the blue field, and then when we take it off, the blue field is below the image. Now the reason you can see through it is we've set the opacity attribute so that you can see through it and better visualize this. So let's come over here now and let's go to the image. Now in this case, on mouse over, we're changing the image being shown. Alright, so now that we have a web page with a couple of interactions and some key concepts, namely opacity, layers, and a script to change the images and the index level, let's go to inspect. Right click on the window, inspect. We're going to get much more into the functionality of this developer's tool in Chrome. But right now let's take a look at a couple of things. First of all, if we click on the window, it changes, but if we come down here and we highlight which item we're looking at, we can change some of the values. For example, right now we have division layer 1 highlighted. And if we look over here, we can see that the code for the left coming out of the cascading style sheet, first of all, we can see that it's browser.cascading style sheet. And we can see now that the left code for that is 150. Well, what if we highlight that and move it? We can now see what that looks like. Well, what we can't see is the index changing because there's nothing for it to be on top of or below it. But we can play with that. And that way now we know that, okay, you know what we really want is to be overlapping 100% overlap. So let's just move it back. And look at that, it's clipping my text ever so slightly. So let's highlight on the top and move it up a little bit. And now if I were to actually take this code and highlight it and copy it, layer 2, and I were to go back to my design environment, and let's just come over into here and highlight that into layer 1 and paste it, and we can see that the top has changed. And now let's repost that. And we can see that we're putting it back up to the web server. And let's go back here and close this window and refresh. And we see that we've now actually changed our code, and we have used the web browser to help us design that change. Now we're going to get more into this later on in the course, but we want to be familiar. This is Chrome, and it is the Inspect panel. Now we also have a Resource panel where we can look at some different aspects of this. For example, here's the images that are involved on it. The network. We can get some information about the network and some information about sources and breakpoints and different software issues going on here. We can get an idea of how things load. We can look at a profile and collect some information. We can audit it and get some particular test results. And we can go to a console where we can actually run a command on that and see what happens. And that is the Inspect panel in Chrome. I hope that helped clear some things up and show you some interesting concepts, and we'll get more into that later on.